Hello and very warm welcome to Amish Shakil 5858. I am Amish Shakil. Following are the news headlines which have been reported by American, European, Asian, Canadian, African, and Australian news channels and AFP, AP, Reuters, news agencies. So now please let's watch the news headlines.
Tonight, new reporting on the suspect in the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Sources say his alleged killer joked with friends on social media about the images authorities released. Vigils for Kirk held across the country as politicians increasingly cancel public events amid threats. We begin with the shooting suspect. The governor says he's not cooperating with investigators. How he allegedly spent the hours before he turned himself in. Authorities are now reviewing a group chat on a messaging platform. His alleged response to friends who said he looked like the shooter, and what we're learning about his roommate, plus the plans for Kirk's funeral and a host of tributes, including one at the Kennedy Center in Washington. How government officials are responding to the influx of threats, and the president seeks more money to boost security. Also tonight, a new show of force. Russia and Belarus hold joint exercises right on NATO's doorstep. President Trump threatens new sanctions, but only if NATO members stop buying Russian oil. Ukraine steps up its attack, striking a Russian oil refinery. The rare sight, a tornado on the ground in Utah, and the destruction of homes. Summer returns with temperatures in the 90s across much of the country. The U.S. puts renewed pressure on Venezuela, accusing it of supporting drug traffickers. F-35s are on their way to the region. The Navy stops and searches another boat off South America. Memphis, meanwhile, bracing for the National Guard. President Trump says he's trying to save the city, but the mayor pushes back, saying crime is already down. The massive anti-immigration protest in London, violent clashes, and what Elon Musk told the crowd. The first American-born Pope turned 70, and the stunning celebration, including drones over the Vatican. High-stakes showdown on the court as the WNBA playoffs began, and reaching for the sun, how Clover went from a tiny seed to the Guinness Book of World Records.
From ABC News World Headquarters.
So right now, Secretary of State Marco Rubio in Israel with Prime Minister Netanyahu for high-stakes talks after Israel struck Hamas terror leaders in Qatar. It comes in Netanyahu hints the job in Qatar is not done. Posting quote, the Hamas terrorist chiefs living in Qatar don't care about the people in Gaza. They blocked all the ceasefire attempts in order to endlessly drag out the war. Getting rid of them would rid the main obstacle to releasing all of our hostages and ending the war. Let's bring in former Trump Deputy National Security Advisor, KT McFarland. KT, the president is dealing with two situations here, but it's all the same issue. You got Hamas terrorists that are in Qatar, but he also has diplomatic relationships with the Arab world that he has to maintain as well. So acknowledging the terrorists and where they are, while still trying to not tick off the people that he's trying to get peace with as well. How does he work this out?
Well, he's got to thread the needle. On one hand, he said, eliminate Hamas. Israel, do whatever you have to do to eliminate Hamas and do it quickly. But on the other hand, as you point out, he's got these burgeoning relationships with the Gulf Arab countries. And we also have a military base in Qatar. So he doesn't want to have Israel do what it needs to do against Hamas, but at the same time alienate the bigger picture, which is the bigger piece in the Middle East. I think the reason Marco Rubio is in Israel right now is to have those conversations and to ask the Israelis, what are you planning to do? You're planning to go into Gaza City next week. We know that. But what are your objectives? Do you think you know where the hostages are being held? Do you think you know where the senior leadership of Hamas is? How are you going to get rid of them? How are you going to take them out? How are you going to relieve the hostages? But at the same time, what's your plan for the day after? Because the day after, Israel said many times it does not want to occupy Gaza. So what's the day after? The day after has to include those Gulf Arab countries. And what is their role going to be? So it's again, President Trump is very good at threading this needle, but he's got to thread the needle.
It's a tough one, but it's one of the many peace deals that he's working his way through. I want to talk about with Russia and Ukraine. As you know, the president's going to be in the UK, and he said something that I thought was quite interesting, and he's putting it on those European leaders yet again. This is what he had to say on Truth Social. I'm ready to do major sanctions on Russia when all NATO nations have agreed and started to do the same thing, and when all NATO nations stop buying oil from Russia. As you know, NATO commitment to the win has been far less than 100%. So he said, look, if I'm going to put my country at risk and, up the ante here economically and how it will impact us, then all of the EU and NATO countries need to be in this with me.
You know, here's the thing. The first day of President Trump's first term, I was in the Oval Office, and he took a phone call from the then German Chancellor Angela Merkel. And the first thing she said was, "What are you going to do about Ukraine?" And he said, "Well, what are you going to do about Ukraine? It's your neighborhood." And that really is the same conversation we're having today, right? All the Europeans and NATO members, what are you going to do about Ukraine? Are you going to have secondary sanctions against Russia? Are you going to give Ukraine more military equipment? What are you going to do about Ukraine? And he's saying, wait a minute, what are you going to do about Ukraine? And although the European countries have been weaning themselves off of Russia, oil and natural gas, since the Ukraine war began, they're not off of it. And they could get off of it a lot quicker. They have alternatives to Russian oil and natural gas. Frankly, they have the American alternative of our oil and liquefied natural gas. So why not buying it from us? Why are they continuing to make Russia rich? They, the Europeans, have given Russia probably nobody knows for sure, but $150, $200 billion of revenue. And that's what Russia's used to fight the war in Ukraine. It's about time that stops.
The fact that the president even has to make this request and they don't know, that's what you need to do, shows you why we're here right now. KT, always great analysis.
Thank you, Lawrence.
I'm Steve Ducey. I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.
Hello there, good morning. On this Monday morning, growing fears that the Prime Minister's days are numbered.
As backbench MPs threaten to revolt over the Lord Mandelson scandal.
But with President Trump's state visit imminent, can Keir Starmer use it to save his leadership?
The first Channel migrants are set to be returned to France today under Sir Keir Starmer's one-in, one-out deal, but could an 11th hour legal intervention throw a spanner in the works?
Are we living through a golden age for nuclear? The UK and US agree a landmark deal to fast-track a new generation of small nuclear power stations.
Calls for schools to teach pupils about the Battle of Britain. 85 years on, and a shocking new poll reveals 2 in 3 under 40s don't even know what it is.
And the Emmy Awards lit up Los Angeles last night, celebrating the best of television. Find out which British teenager made history.
Yes, the buzz surrounding Netflix's Adolescence is back as the drama picked up 6 awards last night. I'll have all the latest from LA later in the show.
And as a couple makes headlines by bringing a card machine to their wedding for guests to contribute to their honeymoon fund, we're asking if requesting cold hard cash as a gift on the big day is tacky.
That's outrageous. In sport this morning, Manchester City got back on track yesterday with a 3-0 win over their neighbours United, while Liverpool beat Burnley with a very, very, very late penalties. And the boxing world continues to pay tribute to one of the greatest British fighters of all time, Ricky Hatton.
Well, it's a windy start to the new working week, especially across England and Wales, where there is a Met Office warning in force. I'll have all of the details coming up shortly.
Hello there, very good morning. Good to see you. I'm Eamon Holmes.
I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast. On this Sunday night, a new federal housing agency promises to break ground this fall. The Prime Minister unveils a new plan to tackle Canada's housing crisis.
A new federal entity that will supercharge housing construction.
As the political pushback begins. In Ontario, grief turns into demands for change. The calls for tougher safety rules after a child is killed in a daycare crash. Plus, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio visits Israel as airstrikes in Gaza intensify. And running for a reason, thousands lace up for the Terry Fox Run, continuing the Canadian icon's legacy in the fight against cancer.
Global National reporting tonight. Gotcha.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Parliament is set to resume tomorrow, setting up the first showdown in the House of Commons between Prime Minister Mark Carney and Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre. Both leaders are hinting at more cooperation across the aisle, but there are some pressing issues. The fall session will build toward the Carney government's first budget, and tonight the Prime Minister has confirmed it will come with a substantial deficit.
substantial means that it'll be bigger than it was last year. And let's look at why that's the case. I mean, the actual level will come out with the budget.
The budget will include new programs being rolled out by the government to deal with economic uncertainty. Today, the Prime Minister announced the creation of a new federal housing agency. The $13 billion investment fulfills a Liberal campaign promise. Our chief political correspondent, David Aiken, reports on the government's plans to build 4,000 affordable homes.
Honey, I'm home. In this Ottawa suburb, Prime Minister Mark Carney gets a first-hand look at what he thinks is promising new technology to rapidly build low-cost houses, factory-built modular homes.
It is great to see what you can build and how fast you can build.
There you go. Beautiful. Carney first touted modular home techniques during the election campaign, where he made this campaign promise.
Our goal is to double the pace of housing construction.
On Sunday, Carney unveiled a new federal agency charged with doing just that. It's called Build Canada Homes.
A new federal entity.
Fan Rose. So exciting to be on TV. Tomorrow at 8:30, we'll stream it all on ABC iView. Today, a landmark government report warns of rising sea levels and a surge in heat-related deaths by 2050 unless climate change can be limited.
Our whole country has a lot at stake. Every Australian, regardless of where they live, has a lot at stake.
The Albanese government to finalise a new defence agreement with Papua New Guinea. ANZ ordered to pay a record $240 million penalty after admitting to widespread misconduct. And records broken at the Emmy Awards as the studio and adolescents clean up in multiple categories. Hello and welcome to ABC News. I'm Catherine Robinson. Australia's first national climate risk assessment is warning 1.5 million Australians are at risk from rising sea levels by 2050 unless climate change can be limited. The assessment also warns climate-related hazards will increase, heat-related deaths will soar, and the cost of disaster recovery will jump to more than $40 billion a year. Climate Change Minister Chris Bowen says it's an honest warning of the cost of failing to act.
Cascading, compounding, concurrent. That's how the Australian Climate Service describes the impact of climate change on every community in our country. Cascading, it will get worse over time. Compounding, each impact of climate change will make another impact.
Actuality, actuality.
Hello and a warm welcome. This is Daybreak on France 24, the headlines. An emergency meeting in Qatar with its Prime Minister calling on the international community to end double standards and hold Israel accountable. The leaders of Iran, Iraq, Turkey and the Palestinian president due in Doha. Meanwhile, another huge explosion seen over the Gaza Strip in the early hours of this Monday. Israel's army destroying dozens more residential buildings in Gaza City at the weekend, repeating that it will only intensify its bombings there that have already killed tens of thousands of civilians. Making Emmy history this year, a record number of awards for a comedy series in a single season, while Adolescents took 4 awards in the limited series category, including Best Supporting Actor for 15-year-old Owen Cooper.
These are our top stories. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio is in Israel for talks with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. His visit comes after the US scolded Israel for launching an attack in Qatar, a US ally. Rubio stated talks would be held on the impact that the strike, which targeted Hamas leaders, has had on truce efforts.
Supporters of Turkey's biggest opposition party, the CHP, have rallied in the capital Ankara ahead of a crucial judicial ruling. The court is due to decide on Monday whether to strip Özgür Özal of his position as the head of the centrist party. Hundreds of members have been jailed as part of the government crackdown. Chancellor Friedrich Merz says Christian Democrats have scored a key victory in the local elections in Germany's most populous state of North Rhine-Westphalia. It's his first major test since taking office earlier this year. His coalition partners, the Social Democrats, maintained their share of the vote. The far-right AfD saw its support triple. This is DW News from Berlin. You can get more on our website at dw.com.
Hello, good morning everyone. It's 6 o'clock on today's show. The first deportation flights to France are expected to take off this morning. Plus, a huge week ahead for the Prime Minister. He'll attempt to use Donald Trump's state visit to take back the initiative amidst growing questions over his leadership. It's Monday, September 15th. The first flight carrying migrants back to France in the government's one-in, one-out deal is expected to take off in the next few minutes. The prime suspect in the disappearance of Madeleine McCann refuses to be interviewed by police. We have a special report this morning from Sudan on the desperate suffering of people whose country has been torn apart by 2 years of civil war.
These camps are full of horror stories that have been hidden from the world. Thousands of people who fled al-Fashir and lost loved ones to brutal violence and famine.
Plus, 15-year-old adolescent star Owen Cooper makes history as the youngest ever male winner of the embassy. And champions Liverpool tried their luck against Burnley, winning with a penalty. This was deep inside stoppage time. Good morning, everyone. Well, the first deportation flight carrying migrants back to France as part of the government's one-in, one-out deal could take off in the next few minutes.
Is Asia Now.
Good afternoon. It's 12 p.m. in Singapore and Hong Kong, 9:30 in New Delhi, and 11 o'clock in Jakarta. I'm Ilakya Simbaraji. Your headlines this hour. China's economy is showing more signs of strain. Weaker factory activity, sluggish consumer demand, and a prolonged property downturn weighing down on key indicators in August. China's new visa-free policy for Russian citizens takes effect today for 1 year. The number of Russian visitors is expected to jump by up to 40% with a new trial. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu hails strong ties with the U.S. despite tensions over the Fatah strike. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is in Jerusalem for talks on Gaza. Plus,
for us joining ASEAN, what we can contribute? Well, I have said repeatedly, absolute priority is for Timor-Leste to stay peaceful with law and order, public security, stability in government.
Timor-Leste's President Jose Ramos Horta speaks to CNN as the country prepares to be formally admitted into the Southeast Asian Bloc next month.
Africa News. The news.
Malawi's President Lazarus Chakwera was back on the campaign trail last week ahead of Tuesday's general election. The most prominent issue for voters are the cost of food and fertilizer. 80% of the southern African nation's 21 million people rely on small-scale farming. We're lacking an agriculture market in our area, and on top of it, there's hunger. We're appealing for business capital so that we can alleviate ourselves from this hunger. Cyclones and droughts have worsened food insecurity. 70-year-old Chakwera is facing 16 challenges, including 2 former presidents.
Chakwera is going to scope a lot of votes. I'm going to vote for Chakwera because his leadership doesn't consist of tribalism.
Chakwera's main rival is former President Peter Mutharika. He's campaigning on a platform of return to trusted leadership. Everyone should go and vote. Please make sure you take your parents with you from the village. so that they too can vote. Even if it means carrying them on a motorcycle if they're feeling sick, give them painkillers so they too can vote. The winner needs to have more than 50% of the vote. Analysts are predicting that no one will get a majority in the first round of voting, and they expect a runoff between Chakwera and Mutharika. The 2025 World Athletics Championship got underway in Tokyo on Saturday. Sunday morning saw the final of the women's marathon. The race kicked off 30 minutes early in a bid to beat the heat, but the morning was still a humid 28 degrees. Ethiopia's 3 runners led the pack as it headed out of the stadium for a grueling 41-kilometer circuit around the Japanese capital. More than 2 hours and 20 minutes later, Ethiopia's Tigsta Set and Kenya's Perez Jepchirchir re-entered the national stadium neck and neck, both picking up the pace as the finish line came into view. Set initially took the lead in the 100-meter sprint, but Jepchirchir found a last reserve of energy that saw her sail past her rival to the finish with a time of 2:24.43, just 2 seconds ahead of Asset. It was deja vu for both women. Jepchirchir took gold in the same stadium at the delayed Olympics in 2021. Asset also narrowly missed out on first place at last year's Olympics in Paris. Uruguay's Julia Patanane came third with a time of 2:27.23.
The museum in Rabat's Old Medina features dolls from 90 countries dressed in little traditional outfits that reflect the ways of life from every corner of the world. The World Dolls Museum, officially named the Poupées du Monde in French, is home to roughly 2,500 dolls. This museum represents heritage as well as the diversity of the world. It also reflects very important values such as dialogue on culture. That is the higher goal for me. The dolls can tell a lot just by standing still in display cabinets through their outfit, their head dress, and even what they are carrying. The oldest doll in the collection was a gift to Hafar's wife by her grandmother when she was 5 years old. It all began with the gift my wife received from her family. After that, we continued collecting dolls during our travels. Later, our children also started contributing to the collection. Friends and colleagues of mine and my wife joined in as well. They've offered valuable contributions, and this is still happening. Hafa and his wife started the museum in 2019, introducing their colorful dolls to the public. Children with autism live in their own world. I came here with my son to this cultural museum with the goal of developing his intelligence and giving him a chance to discover the whole world, not only his own private world. I noticed that he felt comfortable when he entered the museum. The museum offers educational activities such as drawing or crafting simple dolls.
Tonight, the search for a motive.
I'm Carter Evans in Utah, where the investigation into Charlie Kirk's assassination is deepening, but the suspect is not talking.
And security concerns.
I'm Willie James Inman, traveling with the president in New Jersey as leaders in Washington reevaluate their security needs in the wake of Charlie Kirk's murder.
We will make certain that everyone has the level of security that's necessary, that the resources will be there for their residential security and their personal security. We're evaluating all the options for that.
Peace plan. Secretary of State Marco Rubio arrives in Israel with a message for Prime Minister Netanyahu. And what's brewing in the Atlantic?
I'm meteorologist Andrew Kozak. I'm tracking what could be our next named storm out in the Atlantic. I'll have your forecast.
Also tonight, red carpet ready.
I'm Tina Demetrius on the red carpet where the stars are out and anticipation is building.
And later, don't call it a comeback. A new generation embracing an aging icon.
Did you ever imagine when you opened
Tonight, new developments in the investigation into Charlie Kirk's assassination as the White House moves to boost security. Utah's governor revealing new information about the suspect and his romantic relationship with his roommate, he says, who's now helping officials. As for the man accused of killing Kirk,
The suspect has not been cooperating so far.
plus the stadium-sized memorial planned to honor Kirk and NFL teams paying tribute tonight. Safety also in the spotlight with the White House requesting millions of dollars to boost government security as lawmakers face growing threats. The FBI director under growing scrutiny for his handling of the investigation. Mexican Independence Day celebrations in Chicago during an ongoing immigration crackdown and after a deadly ICE confrontation near that city. Take a look at this. A huge tornado touching down in Utah and the latest damage reports from a twister in North Dakota. The Secretary of State arriving overseas, meeting with Israel's Prime Minister after he said President Trump is not happy with the Israeli attack on Qatar. Here at home, cases of West Nile virus spiking this year as health officials sound the alarm. Why it's happening and why you might have no idea if you have it. Buy now, pay later platforms soaring in popularity as more people turn to them for hotels, groceries, even DoorDash. Do you ever worry that any of your customers are going to get in over their head and overextend themselves?
For sure.
What it may say about our economy. Our one-on-one with the CEO of Klarna.
This is NBC Nightly News with Hallie Jackson.
Good evening. We begin tonight with news. Tonight on PBS News Weekend, Israel's two fronts as strikes continue in Gaza. We look north to the conflict in Lebanon for a rare on-the-ground look at the Israeli military's presence there. Then, following Nepal's largest unrest in decades, we look at what's behind the Gen Z protests that toppled a government. And he aimed to blow our minds. A new archive opens in London celebrating the dazzling career of rock starman David Bowie. Every day we're finding really interesting new stories, new discoveries, things that have never been on display before.
Thank you for watching Amish Shakil 5858. I am Amish Shakil. I hope you will visit again. Have a good life. Bye-bye.